Good evening, everybody. We'll start with today's session. We are discussing regarding the homeopathic management of the one-sided diseases, and out of which the local diseases, that is the one-sided diseases of the external manifestations, which we are discussing. And he has classified the diseases into two types, either caused because of the external cause or internal cause. And the treatment of external cause, already we have discussed, it is auxiliary measure with surgical measures with homeopathic treatment. And thereafter, he started discussing about the local diseases caused because of internal cause. And he tried his level best to explain to everyone that these are not the local diseases, but these are the part and parcel of the whole human being, where the vital force is at first and is at fault, and because of which the disease develops at the external most level. And if it happens to be there at the external most layer, it is because of internal cause, where you have to treat that internal dynamic disease only and only with the internal homeopathic medicine. As they are of chronic in nature, generally there might be three varieties of causes. Dominating during Hahnemannian time was Sora, and that's why he says it might be because of antisoric medicine, but depending upon the cause, if it is antipsychotic, if it is psychotic, antipsychotic, if it is syphilitic, antisyphilitic remedy, which you have to give internally. And that's the way with which you can treat such types of disorder. And here again, you have to take into consideration the patient's totality, as well present totality, as well as the past totality of when the disease has originally started, and all those things gives you right medicine, along with the all the mm, uh, all the points which he has covered while discussing the fifth aphorism, how to investigate the fundamental cause, and which gives you a right medicine, and that medicine should be given internally so that you can solve such types of varieties of one-sided or local diseases. So this is what we have discussed up till now. We have finished up to the aphorism number 200. Today we have to start with 201, and we'll learn 201 along with its one footnote. That's all, because it is a big aphorism. We'll understand what exactly he wants to explain in 201. It is evident that man's vital force, when encumbered with a chronic disease, encumbered means to get disturbed, अडथळा येणे. It is evident that man's vital force, when encumbered with the chronic disease, which it is unable to overcome by its own powers, instinctively adopts the plan of developing a local malady on some external parts, solely for this object, that by making and keeping a disease state, this part which is not indispensable to human life, it may thereby silence the internal disease, which otherwise threatens to destroy the vital organs and to deprive the patient of life, and it may it may thereby, so to speak, transfer the internal disease to the vicarious. Vicarious means च्या ऐवजी in place of vicarious. Transfer the internal disease to the vicarious local affection, and as it were, draw it thither. So what he is explaining? He is explaining exactly how the disease develops in the nature. Generally, when the disease has to happen, the internal vital organs are generally they are saved at the cost of throwing the disease on the external most layer of the world. If it appears on the external most layer, specifically if it appears on the skin surface, it is always safe because the vital organs remain safe. You never get diseased, you never get so much diseased where the life is threatened. But your life is basically saved on the basis of expressing the disease on the external most layer. And this is how the nature tries to maintain the health. This is how the disease, whenever the disease has to happen, even though it might be acute or chronic, it always tries to throw away it on the surface. The presence of local affection thus silences for the time the internal disease, though without being able either to cure it or diminish it materially. Very specific thing which he is explaining over there. The manifestations which appears on locally, externally, because of which the internal disease, internal organs are saved. The internal disease becomes silence because the disease is thrown on external most layer, and because of which vital force little bit maintains itself. But if it is chronic, vital force itself is not able to eradicate it completely. Vital force itself is not able to cure itself permanently. So if it is chronic, it always requires an aid. It always requires a treatment. Without treatment, it will not going to heal. So any chronic disease which is expressing its sign on the external most layer, you can you have to treat it by internal anti-miasmatic remedy. The vital force itself is unable to extinguish that disease itself. And that is what he wants to explain over there. It only silences internal disorder. So when it is thrown on the external most layer, for example, if it is psoriatic, if it is thrown away in the form of vesicular lesions on the body, or if it is psychotic, if it is thrown away in the form of leucorrheal discharge or yellowish mucopurulent discharge per urethra, or in the form of condylomata, or if it is syphilitic, it is thrown in the form of primary chancre, then the internal organs are saved. Internal system is saved. The vital force itself is already deceased, but it is throwing its manifestation only on the surface, saving the vital organs. But it is unable to cure by this method. This is not a process of cure, but this is a process by which the internal organs are remain safe, as well as the vital force becomes little bit silenced. The local affection, however, is never anything else than part of general disease, but a part of it, increased all in one direction by the organic vital force and transferred to the less dangerous, that is external part of the body, in order to allay. To allay means to make it mild. Allay म्हणजे शमवणे, मराठीत शमवणे. To allay the internal element. So whenever vital force tries to throw away such symptomatology on the external most aspect, it tries to allay the internal damage. This is very important. One must understand this. It is not a process of a cure, but it is a process by which a person is saved. The person's life is saved. And this is the way with which it expresses. So if you go with all three miasms, whether it is venereal or non-venereal, the manifestations, primary manifestations are always thrown on the external most layer. In case of psora, it is each externally on the skin. In cases of syphilis, it is primary chancre on the genitals, the externalmost aspect of the genitals in the form of an ulcer. If it is psychotic, it is in the form of a gonorrhea, or it is in the form of a condylomata, again on the skin, externalmost layer. And when this happens, this is only for the purpose of making the vital force little bit mild, at the same time, at the same time to save the internal vital organs. But as has been said, by far from anything, by this local symptom that silences the internal disease, so far from anything being gained by the vital force towards diminishing or curing the whole malady, the internal disease, on the contrary, in spite of it, gradually to increase, and nature is constrained. Constraint means to suppress, दबलेला राहणे, नाईलाज झालेला. Nature is constrained to enlarge and aggravate the local symptoms always more and more, in order that it may still suffice as a substitute for the increased internal disease and may still keep it under. So once the disease is thrown away on the surface, for example, eczema is thrown away on the surface, it doesn't mean that when eczema has happened, the internal disease is cured. In fact, internal disease is already there. Because of eczema, the internal organs are saved. Vital force is not able to cure itself. It will not eradicate the eczema itself because because the vital force itself is diseased. The eczema is the expression. And to bring back again the vital force in the state of health, it requires an aid. Only thing is that because of throwing it on the surface, the internal disorder which is going on, it never stops, but the process becomes gradual. It goes on increasing. The external manifestations goes on increasing day by day till you don't treat it. So eczema, which is of a very small size, gradually increases, again increases in size, unless and until the internal disease is cured. So you have to understand this process. This process is very important. If you are able to understand this process, then you can definitely consider that you have to treat internally and not externally. If you try to patch this with external any ointment, the disease will turn inside. Then the direction will change. Then there will be you feel that patient is getting cured. No, it is not cured. It is suppression, going from less important organ to the more important organ. And this transformation affects the patient so much. And this is what he is explaining over there, that nature is not getting cure. Nature itself is not able to cure this. In fact, the internal disease goes on increasing. At the same time, the external manifestations goes on increasing. Old ulcers on the legs get worse as long as the internal sore is uncured. What he is saying? The old ulcers which appears on the skin surface goes on increasing unless the sora is cured. So sora lies internally, which is diseased. You have to treat it with antisoric remedy. Then and then external manifestations disappear. So old ulcers on the legs gets worse as long as the internal sora is uncured. The chancre enlarges as long as internal syphilis remains uncured. The figwarts increase and grow while the psychosis is not cured, whereby the latter is rendered more and more difficult to cure as the general internal disease continues to increase as time goes on. So he's explaining it related with the psychosis, related with the syphilis, related with the sora. So if it is skin manifestation because of sora, it goes on increasing unless you treat it internally with antisoric. The same is true regarding the ulcers of primary syphilis, which are on external most aspect on the male or female genitalia. They are the result of the internal disease. Unless and until you treat that internal syphilitic miasm, they will not going to get cured. They goes on increasing day by day. Same is true when the psychosis happens to be there in the form of venereal warts or in the form of condylomatous or in the form of a perurethral yellowish mucopurulent discharge. It goes on increasing unless and until you treat the internal psychosis. So disease goes on increasing. The chronic disease will not yield completely to itself by itself unless and until you treat it with proper antimiasmatic remedy. And this he wants to highlight in your mind, that any chronic disease which is expressing externally in the form of local disease should be treated internally with the proper antimiasmatic remedy. So this is in short the understanding regarding this miasm. Every chronic disease which is expressing as a local disease externally always requires anti-miasmatic remedy depending upon what miasm is in background. And that should be provided internally and not externally. One more footnote is there, which he tried to explain over there in the footnote number 116 to this paragraph. We'll read that footnote. This is related with the one method which generally old school practitioners they used to use at that time. And that is called as using issues. Anyone knows what is issues? Issues is nothing but the suppurating sore maintained by the foreign body in the tissue. So they used to put the foreign body on the skin surface, and because of that foreign body, the body starts reacting and producing a suppuration. So by which there was a discharge used to happen over there. So this method was called as an issue. So what he says, the issues of the old school practitioners. The issues of the old school practitioners do something similar. As artificial ulcers on external parts, they silence some internal chronic diseases, but only for a very short time. As long as they cause a painful irritation to which the sick organism is not used, without being able to cure them. But on the other hand, they weaken and destroy the general health much more than is done by the most of the metastasis affected by instinctive vital force. There was a method in old school that they used to put a foreign body inside the skin. So whenever you put any foreign body, the body reacts with the inflammatory process. There always happens a suppuration. The pus is formed. It is so painful that patient forgets the internal disease and that starts discharging. But it doesn't mean that that is getting internal disease is getting cured. It is not at all. In fact, because of loss of vital fluids through that suppurating sore, patient becomes day by day weak. So such a method will not going to cure that patient. If that patient who is suffering from some local disease or some internal disease, you have to find it out exactly a remedy to that patient and it should be given internally. If you give it internally, it will clear the internal dynamics. It will clear the internal miasm. And once it is cured, automatically disease will be vanished. Such types of treatment like issues or cetons, which were prevalent during Hahnemannian time, were not of any use and which were not able to cure the deranged vital force. So Hahnemann mentioned over there, such a issues method or cetons methods were of no use. In fact, they were causing more and more damage or more and more weakness to humanity. So that's what he wants to explain over there regarding this. Uh, I think we'll stop over here in today's session. We'll go further tomorrow. I think tomorrow we'll try to finish two more aphorisms and again two more aphorisms to complete the treatment of one-sided disease. So it will take two more lectures to complete this session because this we have to understand the concept which he tried to explain over there is very much importance. So we'll stop over here only with one single aphorism. Tomorrow we'll continue with the 202. If there are any queries, we'll have a chat or otherwise we'll conclude the meeting.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Misha.
Sir, if we are treating any case of eczema and
Hmm.
we are giving any semilimum and we go on increasing the potency like 30, 200, 1M, 10M. And if we find any need to give a intercurrent, any nosode, and after giving that nosode as an intercurrent, should we start from 10M onwards, resume from that potency, or again start from 30?
No, it depends upon the state of that patient, how the patient is expressing. You have to judge again the susceptibility, again the new state. If it is denoting the same remedy again and same state again, you have to just catch how much acutely it is presenting. If it is presenting acutely where the susceptibility is high, where you get a lot of mentals, then you can go for a high. But if patient is not expressing it in so acute way, then then you have to give the medicine in the low potency. So you should not get it fixed. You can change. You can come down. You can go high. It depends upon that situation. So it is not always fixed. So you should not make any fixity in your mind that if you are given 10M and then you have to go for 50M. It is not like that. Patient might require 6 also depending upon the situation. So it varies from time to time.
And there are chances of changing remedy also, no, sir?
Yes, if
No need to give previous one.
no. If it is getting changed, yes, definitely you have to change. And there are a lot
Okay,
of
okay.
chances if it is chronic disease.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anything else? Any query? So we'll stop today's session and we'll meet tomorrow with the further aphorisms. Thank you very much.